Hello everyone, and welcome to the March edition of the Gryphon Grind.
With recent events at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and now 16 other schools around the country, it's important that we take a step back and look at how we, as both a school and a country, cope with what is now a weekly occurrence.
We're going to hear from teachers Mr. Gryphon and Miss Brown to learn about the psychological and historical aspects of this issue.
My name is Derek Gryphon, and I'm a teacher at the L&N STEM Academy. I teach U.S. history and economics. I wouldn't say this is the first spike in gun violence in history. I think this has happened before. We certainly didn't keep the necessary statistics for years. We didn't give it a name, especially school shootings, until the mid-70s. And of course there was a much larger spike in the 90s, so we're probably lower than that. But we're certainly seeing a resurgence in gun violence over the last 5 to 10 years.
My name is Misty Brown. I am the English 12 teacher, along with AP Psychology and AP Literature. To look at our current society and culture, we have become desensitized thanks to social media, thanks to video games, the popularity of violent action movies. There's been a study done where in a public area, a gruesome, violent movie was playing and no one batted an eyelash, but after that they played an artistic movie with nudity, and people were outraged to see nudity versus violence.
We can use historical events to apply to our current situation by thinking about what has been done in the past, what types of events we've overcome. When we think of particular safety issues in our schools and our communities, we've seen that we can regulate.
Thanks to Facebook Live, thanks to Snapchat, thanks to all of these video outlets that we have, you can watch any type of violent act, from a gang fight to, unfortunately, someone being shot, with having complete and total anonymity. No one knows you're watching it, no one tracks it, no one reacts to you reacting. We've taken it from being a real event happening to a character that we're exposed to, and then we forget about it.
I think the prevalence of social media and its role on particular tragedies that are happening is important and is something that we're certainly seeing. I think that there's a different way that we experience it. I don't know that it necessarily means that there's much more, but it certainly means that we have more connection to it, we see it more often, and we have a ability to react to it differently. That includes action to prevent it from happening in the future. So I think while there are some negative things that we see because we see it more often, there's also a lot of positive things that we see because we can do a lot more to change it.
Students have a responsibility, as teachers do, with our social media accounts. If you see something or you suspect something, it's always important to be vocal about it. I've often heard someone say, I don't want to be caught of stereotyping someone. What would happen if I'm wrong? It's better to be wrong and be aware than to let things slide by.
I think the state of our union will be strong regardless of the change that we see in the country. I think that we live in a very durable country with a very durable democracy. I do think that there is a lack of sustainability in terms of handling certain situations, and I believe that there are various different things that we are capable to do. So we'll be fine, we'll be around, we'll be a country, but I think it may not be the country that we all want to envision ourselves living in.
When devastating events befall us and the hopelessness that often accompanies them, it is important to keep in mind that we all, as a country, have to keep the public eye on these issues and not let the perspective shift.
Now let's take a look at what some of our student body and faculty have to say. Owen Porter and Sean Blevins discuss the impact that social media has on the desensitization of our society.
I'd say one way that a cognizance or a sort of sustained awareness of what's happening, current events, has affected my social media use is that it reminds me that it's important to stay positive and to try to make my contributions to social media. I'm fairly active on Twitter. Try to make those positive interactions and try to put good things in the world.
And I think social media, for the most part, is meant to just be a fun place where you talk about things you're interested in, show things you're interested in, and see what other people think.
I think we're desensitized not because of the prevalence of social media, but because of the prevalence of mass shootings. So Columbine was the first major school shooting that I think broke through the national consciousness, and that was April 20th, 1999, so almost 19 years ago. And in those 19 years since Columbine, there have been over 70 mass shootings, where a mass shooting is defined by a shooter killing 3 or more people at one event. And so over 70 events in less than 20 years. I think that's why we're desensitized. I don't think it's because we know about them. I think it's because they keep happening.
I think it has, and I think there are 2 different sides to it. Obviously, everybody is hurt when that happens. Nobody wants that to happen. And we can only imagine how bad it could possibly be. There's only a certain level that you can see that from a spectator standpoint. But if it were to actually happen to us, I think it would be really painful. I think we've definitely been desensitized to it because there's a lot of exposure we get, and obviously there's a lot of people, and we don't know everybody personally. And I think that when it hits close to home, that's when it's worst. But I definitely think we are desensitized to it.
I would say that I think it's the prevalence of portable recording devices and social media in general in these situations is a good thing, like an actively good thing, and I have a couple of reasons for thinking that. One is simply that, what do we want to happen in regard to mass shootings? I think we want them to stop, and I think that won't happen, that we won't take action to help decrease the likelihood of mass shootings unless we become fully cognizant of the horror of mass shootings and what happens during them. And I think that happens when people are recording them happening. The reason the U.S. government doesn't want photographers taking photos of dead soldiers is because it makes people think the war is bad. And so if we have photographic evidence of what's happening during a mass shooting situation, people will see, oh, this is really awful. And all these concerns about desensitization, I think, will become moot because people will see horrible things and hopefully take action to stop it.
I think it definitely is helpful for when things like this happen, not just for assigning blame or anything like that, but I think one of the biggest things that happens immediately after a tragedy is that people are confused and throwing just whatever they think out the window. I think it really helps to alleviate confusion and gives multiple accounts of what happened so that people can just understand what happened. I mean, that's...
Do I feel numb? No, I wouldn't say I feel numb. I would say I feel raw and I ache.
I think I do feel numb just because it is a recurring cycle, but I think that my generation we've got some radical ideas and a lot of people just want to get stuff done. So I think that while I do feel numb, that change is happening.
Heading to the last stretch of the 2017-2018 school year, we'd like to ask you to show compassion and empathy wherever you can, on and off campus. I'm Deja Gryphon.
And I'm Connor Curran.
And this is the Gryphon Grind.